Hello YouTube, Chrome Freak here.
I hope.
Okay, you're looking at a SLR 100 Bulgarian and Romanian SAR. This is a video that we had a lot of requests on, John and I, from the Dragunov versus PSL video, which turned out to be a great video and a lot of people loved it and I enjoyed making it, and I think John did too. And I've had a lot of requests just people want to hear John speak, and so do I. So I'm going to kind of turn him loose on this, but this is going to be kind of a, everybody wanted to see this. It's a milled receiver, awesome gun, versus a stamped receiver, AK. They're both AKs, Bulgarian, Romanian. But Kalashnikov, when he originally designed the AK, and this was kind of new to me, but I got it out of the Bible of AK-47 books, which I showed you guys last time. I don't want to let my voice get out away from you. But this book right here is very, very educational, I'll say. It's well worth your money to buy it, and I suggest you do. Anyway, Kalashnikov designed the AK-47 to be a stamped receiver. Well, they had problems with the heat treating and whatnot, and they were getting warped receivers. So they went to a milled receiver, and I'm going to kind of let John take it over from here and just roll.
All right, right on. Well, hello everybody. Chrome Freak, thank you for having me back. And again, this is for the
Pleasure.
folks out there who requested a comparison between a milled receiver, AK style rifle, and a stamped receiver gun. And Mike is correct, and I didn't know this either until I read the book, that the original AK-47 was designed to be a stamped sheet metal receiver to aid in the speed of manufacture, but it ended up being a disaster because the Russians were very unfamiliar with the stamping and the welding and heat treating process for the thin sheet steels. It was just a total disaster. They ended up with a high rejection rate of receivers that were warped. And obviously, if your receiver isn't straight, you're going to have all the binding that's going to impart on the moving parts, the bolt carrier, etc. It's just not going to work. So what the Russians did is they redesigned the stamp receiver gun into a milled receiver gun, and they went back to the traditional manufacturing technique of milling a receiver. So what is milling? I mean, what is that? I mean, we have milling and we have stamping. We're really talking about manufacturing process here. But when we mill something, we take something that has a non-useful shape to us, and by the process of removing material, we turn it into something that has a useful shape for us. So a milled receiver AK starts out as a big chunk of metal, and that chunk of metal may be refined. In the case with these Bulgarian receivers here, that big chunk of metal is heated up and it goes into a forge, and forging is a process of heating up a chunk of metal and then smashing it between two dies or two templates into its rough final shape. And then the finished shape is machined or milled. And again, that's when we're machining or milling, we're using processes like drilling and planing and scraping and filing and cutting. We're removing material to take a non-functional shape and make it into a functional shape. Now, on the stamped sheet steel receiver, completely different manufacturing process. We start with a flat piece of sheet steel, and all the holes are cut out of that sheet steel. So the holes for the magazine wells, the holes for the trigger access pins. It's very much like baking a cookie. It's a cookie cutter. Stamp out your rough form, and then that sheet steel receiver is then bent into place, and the rest of the components are added to the receiver to make it functional. Things like barrel trunnions and rear stock trunnions and rails for the bolt carrier to move on. And we're going to show you that later in the video. But I think right now, what a lot of people want is they just want a down and dirty way to tell the difference between a stamped gun and a milled gun. So when they walk into the gun show, when they walk into the gun store, they look at all the AKs up on the wall, they know exactly what they're looking at. And there's a couple real key characteristic features. Let's start with the milled receiver gun really quickly here. All milled receiver guns have some type of lightning cut right below the charging handle on the side of the weapon here. This is a major telltale, and here it is right here. And what I mean by a lightning cut isn't that it's been struck by lightning. What I mean by a lightning cut is that in this area of the receiver where the stresses are less critical, the receiver wall thickness has been thinned to save weight. And so what they've done is they've just machined out this rectangular cut here, scalloping in and out, thinning the receiver wall thickness down in this area here because it's just simply not needed for strength.
So
and that saves some weight.
I don't want to interrupt you. So there's really no functionality in this whatsoever except to save weight.
That is correct. That's the only reason that cut is there. And if we look on the other side of the weapon, we'll see its corresponding lightning cut on the other side of the weapon here.
By the way, guys, I don't want to interrupt John. Both of these weapons have been safety checked, and they are clear. We have to throw that in for the safety salary.
Exactly. That's quite all right. So another key feature of the milled receiver guns is very slab-sided appearance. It's very clean here behind here. All we see are the cross pins for the fire control group. If we flip this over again and we look on the other side, we see how very clean and slab-sided it is. So when you see an AK type rifle up on the shelf and you see these very characteristic lightning cuts here, especially on the side where you've got the charging handle, because there are some countries who had a milled receiver that did not have the lightning cut on the left side of the rifle, and those are the Yugoslavians, but they will always, all countries always had a lightning cut below the charging handle. So when you walk into the store, you see a gun up on the shelf and you see an AK type rifle with this lightning cut right here, you know instantaneously that that's a milled receiver gun. Now if we take a look at this weapon here, the stamped receiver, its largest characteristic, its largest identifying feature right here is this magwell dimple and then the 5 pimples, so to speak. It's like a kid with acne. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rivets that are on the side of the weapon here, and these rivets secure the barrel trunnion and the rear stock trunnion. So when you see magwell dimples and rivet construction, we know that we've got a stamped sheet steel gun. Flip it over to the other side. There's the magwell dimple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rivets. One of the rivets is holding the optics plate on. Stamped sheet steel gun. Now, just like I told you folks with the Yugoslavian guns, where they're a little bit tricky because they've only got one of the 2 lightning cuts, as with all AK type rifles, sometimes we don't get everything that we think we're going to get. There's a very popular line of Romanian guns out there, the Wasser series, that many of them don't have a dimple here in the side of the receiver to help center the magazine in the magazine well. So just because we don't see a dimple doesn't necessarily mean it's not a stamped receiver gun. What you need to then default to is the rivets. You see the 5 rivets, you know you've got a stamped receiver gun. So that's basically the easiest ways to identify between the 2. Now here's another little trick, because sometimes we walk into the gun store and all these things are up in racks like this. You got a whole bunch of guns next to them. We can't really see the sides of them. How do you tell the difference between a milled gun versus a stamped gun? One of the easiest things to do, and Mike, I hope we're on camera here, so you might want to double check.
Oh yeah, you're son.
Okay, good. One of the easiest things to do is if you can't see the side of the weapons clearly and you just want to distinguish, all you need to do is use your finger and run it inside the magazine well really quick. If it's nice and smooth in there, that's a milled receiver. If we look at the stamped receiver gun, same thing, it's up on a rack, can't see the sides of it, but we run our finger underneath here, we feel this rolled edge of the stamping right here. Very, very, very easy to distinguish. So all you need to do is put your finger in there, up, rolled edge, that's a stamped gun. Again, another gun up in a rack. Oh, smooth edge, milled receiver gun. Absolutely perfect way to tell the difference.
Is there any advantages or disadvantages between a stamped and a milled receiver, in your opinion? Or what are the advantages and disadvantages?
Well, one of the disadvantages for a lot of people, I think, with the milled receiver guns is their cost. They just simply cost more. An advantage for people who are assembling Kalashnikov type clones in the United States of America on parts kits, and we'll get into this a little bit later, is that you need less US parts for a milled gun than you do for a stamped gun, simply because of the number of foreign imported parts that are associated with each type of weapon. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But no, a number of countries have done studies, like Finland basically uses an AK-47. I mean, that's what the Velmet is. It's just a refined Kalashnikov. And when they first started off, they had milled receiver guns. They said, hey, this is really expensive. And they went to the stamped receiver and they did a comparison. And they really found that there's no real difference between the stamped receiver and the milled guns. I think for a lot of people, it's aesthetics. And you know, I've got both stamped guns and milled guns just for the sake of having stamped guns and milled guns. I mean, the milled guns have a look all their own, and the stamped guns have a look all their own. But there you go, folks. There's a down and dirty comparison, easy breezy. Hopefully anybody who's watched us this far will be able to go into any gun show, any gun shop, and immediately tell the difference between a stamped receiver gun and a milled receiver gun. And I think what we're going to do now is stop the camera for a second, and we're going to tear these rifles down so we can look inside these receivers and we can get into some of the other nitty-gritty thought processes. I want to show you how the stamped receiver comes together versus the machine work that's on the inside of this milled receiver. We'll also take a look at how the bolts interface with their corresponding areas of the barrel trunnion and the front of this receiver, and just give everybody really a good peek inside both these weapons so they can get a further feel for the differences between the two receiver styles. What do you think, Mike? Do you think it's a good idea we should go?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I also want to say that I understand there's a lot of guys out there that are very experienced in AKs, and they can tell by looking at the gun whether it's a stamped or a milled receiver. So the way we're speaking to you here, the reason we're doing that is there's a lot of new beginners out there, a lot of people that don't recognize it. So it's to help everybody out. So don't feel as we're talking down to you if you're an AK guy, a very experienced AK guy. We're just trying to go from the basics up and give people just a general idea of what to look for, especially if you're new into AKs.
Yeah, because right now it's a golden age of AK collecting. I'm telling you, the parts that you can get, you can buy a gun and start with any particular country of origin, and you can make just about whatever you want out there. And it's intimidating. I mean, when you go to the firearms site and you see 3 or 4 pages with web pages of guns, and there's 25 guns to a page, and you're sitting there going, well, Jiminy Christmas, you know, which Kalashnikov is right for me? How do I even tell the difference between them? Well, there's some basics right there. Just, you know, start to look at your receiver differences, and once you've got that figured out, you got your budget figured out, you start to look at, you know, other configurations for rifles. But, you know, like I said, we want everybody from now on who watches this video to walk into a gun store and say, oh, that's a stamped receiver gun, that's a milled receiver gun.
Right, and you'll also get to the point where I'm not there, I can't do it, but I've been to a gun show with John, and 20 feet away, he could look at one of these AKs, and from 20 feet away, he could tell you the make, who made it, the country of origin, exactly what it is from standing so far away. There's so many little details that I don't pick up because I'm not that experienced with them. I've been around guns my entire life, but there's little subtleties that I don't know. Little cuts, lightning cuts here or there, just little things like that he could pick up right now. And I'll get that too as I get more and more into AKs, and hopefully so will you. So we're going to go ahead and shut the video off for a couple of minutes. When we come back on, we'll have these guns opened up for you.
All right,
Looking forward to it. We'll be back in a minute, guys. Okay, YouTube, we're back. What we did was we completely detailed, disassembled both the rifles. If you could see over here.
Yeah, pardon our lovely lighting.
Yeah, sorry about the lighting in here. We're going to try to do the best we can with what we have. Unfortunately, we don't have the best lighting, but we're going to do the best job we can. Now, for the people I know who are going to ask for a detailed disassembly and reassembly video of an AK, I promise to do that this weekend, time willing. If not, no later than the following weekend, I will get that.
Time willing? We just took both guns down to skeleton stage in 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, you know, when you got a video running and you're doing it by yourself and you're trying to show things in detail, it takes a little bit longer. But anyway, we will try to get that up this weekend. But what we're going to do here is we're going to show you the difference internally in the receivers of a stamped and a milled AK, and how the parts interact and work together. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and let John take it over.
All right, so remember we were talking about our milled receiver and our stamped receiver. Here's our stamped receiver gun, here's our milled receiver gun. And remember I said that this was really, what it boils down to is differences in the manufacturing process. And when I mentioned earlier about milling, I said taking a shape, something that has a useless shape to us, and by removing material, we refine its shape into something that's useful. And that's how this gun started out. This is how this receiver started out. Big chunk of metal, went through the forging process, then went through all the machining and milling process to turn it into something useful and beautiful. Now, the stamp gun is made a little bit differently. It's really an assemblage of parts. So it's completely opposite manufacturing technique, where we start out with more than what we need here, and we take stuff away to refine the shape into something useful. Here, we actually have deconstructed the receiver into individual components we make those individual components like bolt rails, and we've got one right here because I know a lot of people kind of rarely see these in one piece. Normally if you get a parts kit, your receiver's cut up, and so you don't get to see something like this. But we've deconstructed this milled receiver into sub-assemblies that are then recombined to make the stamped receiver functional. Now let's look inside the milled receiver here, because I mean this to me, this is just what it's all about. This is just gorgeous. Remember, this started out as one big chunk of metal.
So guys, I'm sorry about the camera shaking. I'm trying to hold it with my hand and get this in, but
yeah, if we get about
with us.
If we get about a million viewers and you all donate $1, we'll get a real camera and a real studio. So let's take a look internally here, and hopefully we can see this all. This right here is the rail that the bolt rides on. This is the ejector, and again, this is all one piece. It started out as solid metal here. And I know it's just tough because of the lighting, but we can actually see the machine marks where they started to remove all the material here, and then they've left a ridge of metal here that they have very carefully machined into this profile here for the bolt to ride on. They have made a channel above it here with this nice machine lip right here for the top cover to rest on, and it pins the bolt carrier in place. And we've got a very similar cut on the other side of the rifle here. Here's the opposite rail. We don't have the ejector on it. And we've got these nice meaty blocks, one right here, and then a nice recess right here, and a nice solid block right here. Again, all milled out of here. These are the locking lug recesses. This is the main locking lug recess for the bolt, and this is the secondary over on this side. And then this thing right here, hopefully Mike can see this, with this little bit of silver showing here. This is actually the barrel that's been pressed into the front of this receiver. Let's go take a look at the front really quick here if we can. We see a nice lightning cut again. This is actually an area that's been hollowed out for where the cleaning rod goes into. And then we have the solid face of this where the barrel has been pressed into. And here's where the cross pin is drilled. And we have this very nice meaty area right here where the barrel is pinned very securely to this receiver. All this work has to be machined, and it's gorgeous. Let me tell you, these Bulgarians, they do an amazing job. I mean, look at the beautiful chamfer here, the beautiful chamfer here. We have the cutouts in the top rail here to remove the bolt carrier, these nice radius cuts right here. We have a universal tang here for the rear stock. I don't want to say universal, but it's an integral. It's an integral. This is a part of this receiver. This is one solid piece right here, this tang for the rear stock. We have a nice dovetail milled right here for the recoil assembly. And we do see some assemblies, sub-assemblies that have been attached to this receiver. For example, the stamped trigger housing has been riveted to the bottom of it. But we see the nice machine cutout for the magazine well here. Again, looking up in the side here, we see the underside of the bolt rail here with the ejector again. We see an area where it looks like they've made a lightning cut in here because the receiver is thinned down. It doesn't quite correspond with our exterior lightning cut, but nonetheless, there it is. So another area where some metal has been removed. And you know, people might say, how much weight savings, how much lightning are you going to get making a cut like this? Well, it's a couple ounces per cut. And when you're designing a rifle, or you're trying to meet a military specification, which oftentimes they have weight specifications, every little bit helps.
Every ounce counts.
Every ounce counts. So here we see again the areas that have been left meaty here for the bolt to lock behind. And if I can do this really quick, I'll show you really quickly how the bolt locks in there, because it's kind of cool. Hopefully I can do this without fumbling too quickly.
Shaky camera once again.
So here's the bolt, and I have to get this groove in the bolt here over the groove in the carrier here. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it real quickly here. Let's see if I get that.
Never. When you got
exactly.
When you got a camera,
I just
rolling,
practice it 100 times, and all right, there we go. So there we go. So bolt coming forward, and then this is the cam. So that bolt rotates just like that, and now we can see how beautiful that locking lug sits into the recess here and is now locked tight against this chunk of metal right here. And you cannot move that backwards for the life of you. So that's in battery, ready to fire. As soon as the gun is fired, gas drives the piston backwards, drives the bolt carrier backwards. Here's a camming surface that works in the top of the bolt carrier, so that rotates that like that, and then that slides right back.
Before you take that out real quickly, the space that is in between the bolt and the barrel, that would be your headspace.
That is correct.
For people wondering.
So there we go. There's locked. There's unlocked, and I mean, just look at the precision that is required for that fit. You know, people say, "Oh, AK's got loose tolerances and they're piles of junk." I'm sorry, but look at that. Look at that machine work. That's a thing of beauty to me.
Yeah,
that's not junk.
Beautiful.
So now let's compare that to the interior of the stamped gun and see how that comes together.
There's going to be a huge difference in quality.
Well, you know, again, the Finns did a study on quality, the milled versus the stamped, because the finished velvet is really just an AK-47. And a quality stamped receiver, they didn't see any difference in the accuracy of the rifles. They said, hey, we'll save the money, we'll do the stamped receiver.
Try to get our shadows.
Yeah,
we're working with
exactly.
horrible light, guys, and I apologize once again.
So here is our stamped receiver, and again we see some similarities here. We see some nice bolt rails that look exactly the same. You say, well, what's the difference? Well, again, those bolt rails are sub-assemblies because there's nothing to mill away here. We've just got a stamped sheet steel shell. We have to add the bolt rails. So here's a bolt rail again, just like I showed you earlier. This is also a piece of stamped sheet steel. Starts out flat, wham, it goes into shape, and this thing fits in right here. This is a Yugo 762 by 39. It's got a little dimple there, but it sits in right there, and it is actually spot welded to the side of the receiver. So both these rails are sub-assemblies, as is the rear stock trunnion and the barrel trunnion. We still need something solid to lock our bolt to, and a piece of sheet steel doesn't exactly work. So if we look very carefully right here, we can actually see the interface between the sheet steel receiver and the front barrel trunnion, which is a machined steel block that is riveted to the sheet steel receiver. And here's Mike's barrel pressed into it, just like mine. On this one, it's pressed in. Here's the barrel cross pin. So this front trunnion is identical to this machined area here on the milled receiver. It performs the same function, except it's a sub-assembly, and then we have to attach it to the sheet steel receiver, and the way that we do it is through the rivets. There's 1, 2, 3 here on this side, and 1, 2, 3 here on this side. Those rivets take all the force, because remember that bolt is locked into that recess here. So when it goes bang, it wants to go backwards. Those rivets distribute all that force into the sheet steel receiver, soak up all that punishment, and keep everything in place. The way that they actually attach the bolt rails is by spot welding, and I hope our lighting's good enough. Let's pray that it is. This particular rail is going to be spot welded, I believe it's either 5 or 6 times, and the spot welds are right here. There's one here, 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 here. Yeah, so we've got 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the best one is actually probably right here, just above the dimple. It's just a little oval shaped circle. So what they do is after the receiver is bent into shape, they've got a jig that they temporarily pin the rail subassembly into the receiver. It goes to a machine, and it's got 2 electrodes that come in here, bam, bam, and they spot weld it. So that's all there is to it. So you've got one guy stamping these out like crazy, another guy pinning them in here, riveting and pinning everything together and spot welding everything together like crazy, and it's just a great time-saving thing. So at the back of this receiver, the milled receiver, again, we have the nice dovetail cut for the recoil assembly, and a nice stock tang to attach the stock to. Again, sheet steel, not very good for attaching things to, so we have a rear trunnion, and here it is right here, and it's riveted to the receiver. 1, 2, 3, 4, right through the optics leaf. And here's its dovetail for the recoil assembly and for the top cover. And here's its tang for the rear stock. But again, this chunk of metal it's a sub-assembly. It's a complete unique part. You've got one guy turning those out all day long, comes over here, bam, bam, riveted to the receiver, done. So really, when we talk about what are the differences between a milled and a stamped receiver, not only is it the materials, the sheet steel versus the solid steel, but it's also manufacturing philosophy, where this is a very refined, like I said, milling is taking something that's of a useless shape to us, and by removing material, remove all this material in here, make all these cuts, we make something that's useful to us. On a stamped sheet steel receiver, we really have deconstructed this receiver into sub-assemblies, we make them separately, and we pin them together with very cost-effective techniques like welding and riveting.
And let's not forget, this is Kalashnikov's for original design.
That is correct. So here's the interesting twist. I've been telling you they've deconstructed this receiver into this receiver, and to be honest with you, that's really not true. The first design was a stamped sheet steel receiver, a little bit different configuration of the trunnions. You can get the Bible and read up on it, but essentially the same thing. So when the Soviets said, "Oh crap, well, too much vodka, we cannot make this damn thing," they actually had to turn all these sub-assemblies into the milled gun. So it was really the opposite. They took all these sub-assemblies and they said, we need to design it as to one solid piece that we can machine. We have to come up with all these cuts, all these chamfers, all these angles. So it's really the opposite of what I'm saying. But again, I'm not perfect. Two completely different manufacturing philosophies. Easy to spot the differences once you get used to looking at the riveted construction, the dimples, the lightning cuts. Again, my hope is that everybody can go into a store and recognize the difference. And I'm telling you, I just think anybody who's into AK rifles at least have one of each, to be honest with you, because they're really neat guns. Take them apart, look at them. The last thing I want to touch on, because the theme of the video is what is the differences between a milled receiver and a stamped receiver, and we could say milled receiver gun, stamped receiver gun. Interestingly enough, both these guns are American-made guns because they comply with 922. And again, I'm not a firearms lawyer here, so I don't, I know enough about the law to facilitate my own collecting. But interestingly enough, we all know what 922 is about. It says you cannot make a non-sporting rifle, and these are both non-sporting rifles, folding stocks, pistol grips, high cap mags, the whole deal. You cannot assemble a non-sporting rifle out of more than 10 foreign components. So we have to put some American-made components in each gun. Now, interestingly enough, because a milled receiver gun lacks a front barrel trunnion because it is an integral part of the receiver, this weapon has 15 imported parts, and because of this barrel trunnion, this weapon has 16 imported parts. So when you go to build up your parts kits, if you need to have 10 or fewer imported parts for a milled receiver gun, you have to purchase 5 US parts, and for a stamped receiver gun, you have to purchase 6 US parts if you want to stay compliant.
I'm glad you brought that up, John. I wanted to speak also a couple. This only applies, 922R compliant only applies to rifles, no pistols. The Draco can come in. It's fully Romanian.
Oh, you're talking about the Draco pistols. Yeah,
Yes,
that is classified by the BATF as a pistol.
Right.
So as long as you want it in pistol configuration, no 922.
That's right. And also the Sega shotgun. There's a lot of people under the impression that when you open that Sega shotgun up that has just been imported from Russia and you take it out of the box, that it needs to have certain American parts put on it to become 922R compliant. That is not true. That gun is in sporterized configuration already. As long as you do not do certain things to it, the gun is perfectly legal, brand new, out of the box. In fact, John, can you explain exactly what would change the Sega to make it?
Well, I think, there's so many converted Segas out there. I don't think a lot of people have maybe even seen a Sega that isn't converted. What you get when it's European Armory, I believe, who imports those, it's a completely sporterized shotgun. It does not have a pistol grip or folding stock or anything like that. It has a straight stock on it, and it sort of looks like a magazine-fed 870 or something like that, although an 870 is a pump. But what people want to do with the Sega shotguns is they want to kind of remilitarize them by adding folding stocks and pistol grips. So you've taken the gun out of the realm of the sporting clause of Section 922. So now you do have to comply with that, and you have to swap out to U.S.-made components. And again, you go on the internet, there are just so many companies out there who convert the Tromixes, or the Sega 12s. Tromix is one who converts them. Just amazing, neat guns. But the Sega 12, an original Sega 12 with its straight stock on it, no pistol grip, it's 8-round magazine as imported from Russia, that's a sporting gun. It's classified by the BATF, and 922 doesn't comply. By buying one, it could, if it didn't comply, it wouldn't be here. Let's just put it to you that way. Exactly. So hopefully that answers the question. And again, we're not lawyers. If you don't trust us, go on the web and do the homework.
Call lawyers. Exactly. Don't take our legal advice. But we did go ahead and change the pistol grip out on the SAR here, just in case, to be safe. And we're going to keep it like that. I'm going to be sending this rifle out for a refinishing job from a friend of John's. I'm not sure if he wants to name the business. I'm not sure. But it's going to be coming back, and when it does, I can't wait to do the video. I can't wait to see it myself, and then we'll do the video on the gun and show you exactly what was done to bring it back.
Yeah, real proud of Mike. He's doing his remilitarization on this SAR 3, and it's just going to be great. He's putting it right back into original military configuration. We're going to do it 922 because we have to. This gun is a 922 compliant gun because it's just the world that we live in. But I hope everybody now has just got a really good feel for the difference between the stamped sheet steel AK and the milled receiver AK. In fact, again, you know, we turn this up on end. This is a great look at it right here. That's perfect because here we see the barrel trunnion that the barrel's pressed into, and look at this. Here we just got a sheet steel box. That's all this is, kids. Yep. As compared to, you can see the thicknesses and the difference here in the milled gun, where we've got this solid block of steel in the front, and we've just got this recess cut into it to facilitate the cleaning kit.
Right. Without the lightning cut, that would just be a square piece of block steel.
Yep, but it's there to facilitate not the cleaning kit, but the cleaning rod actually. So really, again, differences in manufacturing philosophy. Which one's better? I think they're both good guns. Which one's more expensive? The milled guns. And let me slip this in here really quick, because I'm telling you right now, you know, this may get Chrome Freak in trouble a little bit here, but there's a bunch of milled receivers floating around out there. There's 3 companies that are doing American-made milled receivers. It's Ohio Rapid Fire is one of them. CNC Warrior is another one. The Firing Line, and I guess we can even say that there's 4 because there's Arsenal USA that are out there doing them. Really do your homework, guys, on these U.S.-made milled receivers, because there's some problems with some of the American manufactured ones. I don't want to badmouth anybody, but just do your homework on it. And if you want to be safe, there's 2 foreign milled receivers, guns that you can get here in the United States, and those are the guns that are built on the made in Bulgaria milled receivers, just like this one is. This is the model SLR 100. There is also the Bulgarian SLR 95, and I believe the SLR or SA 93 is the other one. If you find a Bulgarian receiver gun, even if it's been remilitarized, 922 compliant, or if it's in original imported condition, and you want a milled receiver gun, jump on it, because I think they're the best. The second best is dear to Chrome Freak. It's the Polytech Legend, but they've really gone into collector status, and they're tough to get. But you can still get into a Bulgarian milled receiver gun for $750 to approximately $1,100 depending on what you want to spend. And you can't go wrong with it. I've never heard of anybody having an issue with these Bulgarian type receivers. They're absolutely gorgeous. It's a hot die forging process. Beautiful. It's a beautiful machine work on it.
It is.
If you see one, go for it. You only live once. It's only money.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I mean, I'm not sure with the lighting in here if you could really see this, but just everything about it is perfect. It is absolutely gorgeous, as all John's rifles are. And he knows what he's doing, and he's got an eye for quality. And hopefully I can learn something from him, and hopefully you did too.
All right, guys, that's it. Like we said, goal here is the next time you're at the gun show, you can immediately tell the difference between a stamped gun and a milled gun. And good luck in your milled gun hunting. They're a little bit rare to find out there, but go find a good one, go get it. Good luck in your stamped gun hunting. Plenty of them out there to choose from. Again, do your homework. Make sure you're happy with it, and enjoy your Kalashnikovs.
There you go, guys. Okay, we're going to end this video, wrap it up quickly. We will be doing a detailed disassembly and reassembly this weekend, possibly, if not the following, for sure. And that's about it. We're going to wrap this up, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry about the lighting. Sorry about some of the shoddy camera work. But John is just, he's a phenomenal guy. I love hanging out with him and just talking with him, and it's amazing. Please, PM, comments, questions. We'll get to them as soon as we possibly can. Just be patient, but we welcome all comments and questions. All right, guys. We'll see you. Good night.
Good night.